This is the ultimate guide for building muscle for bros. I wasted years in the gym, so I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to build muscle and save you those years. If you're just starting out or you've been training for a while but haven't seen much progress, then this video is for you. Okay, so what is muscle growth? There are two ways you can gain size: muscle hypertrophy and muscle hyperplasia. Hypertrophy is simply your muscle fibers getting larger, and hyperplasia is adding more muscle cells. Now, surprisingly enough, the main way in which you will build muscle is through hypertrophy. So making the muscle cells you already have larger, not adding more muscle fibers. Hyperplasia or adding more fibers does happen, and it can happen, but the main one is hypertrophy. So the first thing to worry about or to think about when you're starting off in the gym is, what are you actually going to do when you get there? It's really important that you don't just go there, do whatever you want to do, and based on what you're feeling on that day, randomly choose an exercise. You see that, I don't know, the bench is open, and then you just go start benching. Then you go see one of the back machines are open, then you go do that, and just however you feel. And then the next day, go do the same thing, just whatever's open, randomly do that. So I know when you're just starting out at the gym, or even if you've been going for a little bit, there's already so much to take in. It can be quite intimidating. I know I was when I just started off. I remember seeing that weight section and just being so scared. I don't know why. I felt like that was just a place where I was going to get injured. I saw all of the gym fails. So I was like, I am not going there. I just went to the machines, did whatever machine I felt like doing. I think I always did that, one of the chest machines. I also would see the people in the free weight section, and I'll just be so intimidated all the time. I just wouldn't go there. On that, the scariest people in the gym are almost always the friendliest people and the coolest people you'll meet. I met some of my best friends at the gym, or like at least built really strong relationships with the people I've met and gone to the gym with. Don't worry about that. You will end up loving it. Now it's pretty much my second home. So anyway, right, when you start off, just choose a workout split that you want to do and stick with it for a few months. Just stick with it. Use it to learn the basics, get going, start measuring your progress, start getting stronger. And there are so many workout splits out there. Everybody's putting out different ones every day. But just like a simple guide, you'll get the bro split, which is just doing one muscle group a day. So Monday, you'll do arms, Tuesday, you'll do chest, Wednesday, back, then legs, and so on. So you're only hitting each muscle group once a week. You will see results doing this, especially when you're just starting out. Pretty much anything you do, you will get some results. And I am going to get into this more. The aim is to hit or train each muscle group at least twice a week. Once still works great. Twice, it's going to lead to better gains, more muscle, and that's what you want, right? So some better splits you'll see are push-pull legs. Push on Monday is essentially some sort of chest variation. You'll do like flat bench, chest press, or an incline. You'll do some tricep movements, so tricep push downs. You can do shoulders, so you got shoulder press, you got lateral raises. All of the pushing movements, that will be on Monday, right? For example. Then on Tuesday, you can do pull, so that's your back movements. Can be pull-ups, can be rows, lat pull-downs. You also got biceps in there, can be bicep curls. And then the Wednesday can be legs. And then you just repeat. So Monday push, Tuesday pull, Wednesday legs. Then you repeat, Thursday push, Friday pull, and then Saturday legs. Sunday rest. So with that, you'll hit each muscle group twice a week. Then you got upper-lower splits. Monday, you could do your entire upper body. So you can do some chest, back, shoulders, arms, so your biceps, triceps, everything, right? Then the following day, the next day, you'll do lower, which are all your leg muscles, your quads, hamstrings, calves, all of that. How that would look is Monday upper, Tuesday lower, Wednesday rest, Thursday upper, Friday lower, Saturday, Sunday rest. So they're still hitting everything twice a week. Then when you're just starting out, full body can actually be really good. You want to do it about 3 times a week, ideally. So that could look like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then all the other days you rest. General rule of thumb, if you train a muscle, give it about 48 hours before you train it again. But we will get into the intricacies of it later on. Pick a split, stick to it for a few months. And after you've been training for at least 2 to 3 months, ideally when you're starting out 6 months, you're learning everything. You're going to get a lot of growth from this. So just choose one of them and stick to it. Preferably not the bro split, but if that's what you want to do, you're more than welcome to. It'll still be good. I just think that the other options are better. Now that you've chosen a workout split, the next thing to look at is programming. Which exercises are you going to do? How much volume? When I speak about volume, how many reps, how many sets? How that works is you do a set of a given number of reps. So if you go in and you want to bench, you do the action, the bench, 9 times. That's one set of 9 reps. That's just to show what I mean by sets and what I mean by reps. And when I speak about volume, I'm mainly speaking about the number of reps you do and the number of sets you do. We're going to touch on volume. The next thing is frequency. So how many times a week do you train that muscle? The last thing I'm going to look at is progressive overload. So what that is, what it means, how to implement it, volume. If you're training chest that day, so let's take the push-pull legs example. So particularly the push day. On that day, you'll do chest, shoulders, and some triceps. I suggest a minimum of 4 sets for a particular muscle group. That's usually the sweet spot to start or to stimulate muscle growth. And this doesn't include your warm-ups. Warm-ups are so important. Please do it. It's so simple, but it's so effective. I am going to go into that a little bit more. These sets don't include warm-up, and you don't want to go more than 12 sets for a given muscle group in that session. So if you're doing chest that day, if you're looking at that 4 set minimum, that might be 2 sets of bench and 2 sets of incline. As you increase the volume, you might end up doing 3 sets of bench, 3 sets of incline, and 3 sets of cable flies. Typically, you don't want to go more than 12 sets. Once you get to that point, you aren't really able to give it your all in those exercises anyway. I'll see if I can put this graph on the screen. But yeah, so it starts off with no volume, so no progress. Then as you start adding sets, 1, 2, and then you get all the way to 12, that's where it can make a huge difference in your training between that 4 and 12 mark. And then as you start adding more, it flatlines, and then you don't make much progress. And those additional sets actually don't make a difference, or they make such a little difference. There's no point in doing them. You're so tired at that point. You're not able to give it your all. So rather cut it at 12 and go rest. When you're starting off, I know it's so tempting to just go and copy your favorite bodybuilder, your favorite gym influencer. But remember, they've been training for years. Their workouts, the amount of volume they do is probably going to be too much for you when you're just starting out. And I don't mean it in that they're better than you, and it's nothing like that. It's just that when you're starting out, the stimulus is completely new. Doing all of that is going to wreck you. You're going to be sore for days. You're probably not going to want to go back to the gym. It's just going to be too much. And you might even get weaker from that. I remember when I started out, I did exactly that. I copied like Jay Cutler's workouts. I copied all of these influencers' workouts, and it was just so much volume that I started getting weaker over time. And like I was already barely pushing any weight, and now I couldn't even do that. I remember there was a time where I finally added weight onto the bar on bench, and then after a couple of weeks, I had to drop that and go back to the bar. And I actually remember struggling with just that. So that's the danger with just copying their workouts and doing this insane amount of volume, especially when you're starting out. It's too much. So make the most out of the least. And you'll often hear, and it's so true, less is more. Minimum 4 sets per workout. That doesn't mean it's bad to do it. It's really great to start that way and make progress with those number of sets. So do your 2 sets of incline, do your 2 sets of flat bench. And how you might want to go about increasing this is monitor how sore you get and monitor the amount of progress you're making. So if you do those 2 sets each, the next day, let's say you don't feel sore at all, then you can add a set. So now instead of doing 4 sets, you do 5. That could be 3 flat bench and 2 incline. If you still don't feel so, then the next week, add it again. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know, cliche, but it's so true. You have so much time to do this. Take your time, save yourself the pain of getting injured and doing too much and getting weaker and getting frustrated in the gym. It's just not worth it. So yeah, when you're starting off, start at that lower end and then slowly increase it over time. So frequency, as I said, 2 times a week is the sweet spot. So what happens when you train, right? Let's say you hit chest, okay? Now you cause a stimulus. The stimulus is like, when you're training, you're triggering something called muscle protein synthesis, which is just the process to start building muscle. So that stimulus is very high. When you train chest that day, let's say on Monday, that stimulus goes up. Then on Tuesday, so that stimulus for that muscle building process is high. Then as time goes, whilst you're resting, you get to Tuesday, it goes down because you're recovering or you've recovered. And then if you only train it on Monday, it peaks and then it flatlines until you train it again the next Monday if you had to only do it once. But now that's why 2 times a week is usually the sweet spot, because Monday you'll train, then as it starts going down and you're recovering, you get to Wednesday. Or you get to the next time you're training chest. So let's say that's Thursday, and then you get it up again. And then it goes down. Now you've got two times in that week where you've triggered growth for your chest or for that muscle. And now that's 2 times more every single week. It adds up. If you only do it once a week, that's 52 times in a year. If you do it twice a week, now you've got 104 times a year. But like I said, once a week, you still are going to get that stimulus. You still will make progress. But twice, you're getting double that. So progressive overload. Simply put, it's just do more than last time. There are 4 ways you can progressively overload. You've got an increase in reps, an increase in weight, an increase in sets, or you improve your form. Okay, so just to explain, let's say last week you did 60 kgs on the bench for 8 reps. Then this week, your aim is to do 60 kgs for 9 reps. It's 1 rep more. Yes, it's only 1 rep. It sounds so little, but those reps add up. And that's what will cause your body, or that's what's going to force your body to adapt. Then the other way is increase in weight, which is the main way people think about it. And it is still a great way. So Monday, let's say you did 60 kgs of 12 reps on bench. This week you try 65 kgs and then you get 8 reps. Your number of repetitions dropped, but your weight increased. So in that sense, with the weight, you're progressively overloading. The problem with that is you won't always be able to add more weight and still train with good technique or get into the rep range you were aiming for. So that's why a good rule of thumb is, let's say, taking that bench example, you start off with 60 kgs and you get 8 reps. Then after a couple of weeks, you build up to about 12 reps. Then you increase the weight to 65 kgs and you'll get 8 reps. And then you repeat. By repeating this, that's how you end up getting to those milestone weights. You don't go from a plate, or you don't go from benching the bar to benching 2 plates. You go from benching the bar with 2.5s added, and then 5s added, 10s. And then you get, well, eventually you'll get to a plate, right? So that's how you get to those goal weights. So we got 2 ways now: increase in reps, increase in weight. The next, but even with those ones, sometimes it can be difficult to do. Well, so got an increase in reps, you got an increase in weight. The next way is you increase the number of sets you do. A way you can make sure you are doing more is by adding another set. Just remember to try not to go past that 12 set mark in a particular session, for a muscle group in a session, because you just, what is the term? There's a term for this. Let me find it. What is the term? Oh, junk volume. Yes. The last way you can implement progressive overload is by improving your form. So let's say you're doing bicep curls and you were rocking the weight a little bit last week. So this week you try use that same weight, but control the weight a little bit better. That's still progressively overloading because you're making it more difficult. You're doing it better. And even if you do the same number of reps, because you did it with better form and you made it more difficult, you've still done something, or you've still made it more difficult. Yeah, those are the 4 ways. Next, we got rep ranges. I want to start this with talking about a myth, and that's certain rep ranges are only for certain purposes in the gym. So a common one is doing between 1 and 5 reps is just for strength. Then hypertrophy is just between 8 and 12. And once you start doing about 15 or more, you start tapping into endurance and toning the muscle. So these different rep ranges can be used more, especially that 1 to 5 rep range for strength training. It's a fantastic rep range to improve your strength, but that doesn't mean it won't cause muscle growth. So the truth is, anywhere from 1 to 30 reps, as long as you take it close to what's called close to failure, will cause muscle growth. So when I say close to failure, let's say you're aiming to do that 8 to 12. Let's say you're aiming to do 12 reps on bicep curls. Then you get to your 8th rep, it's really difficult. 9, you just manage to get it. And 10, you try, get halfway, and then you just can't get it. You just can't get it further, right? But you took it all the way there, you tried, and then failed. That is failure. The only thing, at least I've experienced with this, is when you start going into that higher rep range, it can be very difficult to know if you've actually gone to failure or not, because it's that burning sensation just becomes so overwhelming, especially once you get to 20 reps. 20 reps on bicep curls, my arms are torched at that point, right? So once I get there, I'm feeling the need to stop just because it's burning so much, not necessarily because the muscle can't handle it more, but it can definitely work, and it's definitely a great rep range. I just find it harder to know or to actually get to failure with that number of reps. So I'm generally between 6 and 15 reps. But now and then I do throw in those higher rep ranges to change things up a little bit. And the pump is insane when you do those reps. When you go above 15, it feels crazy. Your arms feel like they're going to explode. Yeah, so anywhere between 1 and 30 can cause muscle growth. Oh, and in the lower rep ranges, like I said, they will still lead to good growth. It's just a little bit more dangerous because of the amount of effort you need to put in with that amount of weight. So that's why you'll see people tend to stick between that 8 and 12 rep range, but all the others work perfectly fine. Okay, so next is training technique. Remember I said warm-ups are so important. They are so simple, but they are so effective. What you want to do with warm-ups is when you start a particular workout, I like to do light exercises for everything I'm going to be training that day. So if I'm doing push that day, I'll do a light set of tricep extensions, maybe some lateral raises and some flies, just to get that overall area nice and warm, feeling comfy, everything's feeling loose, and the joints are feeling, make sure all my joints are feeling good. Then before you do a particular exercise, especially in the beginning, and with big exercises like bench press, if I'm working up to 2 plates, I'll start off with just the bar, then I'll put on a plate, start off with just the bar and do about 5 reps, make sure everything's feeling good, and I'll do it in a way, and I'll do it exactly how I want to do my working set weight. So it's still with good form, still trying to control it and feel the muscles I'm using. So I want to feel that I'm using my chest and make sure everything's feeling stable. Then I'll add a plate, do the same thing, and I'm not doing so many reps that I get fatigued before I want to do my actual set. It's just so that everything's feeling warm, everything's feeling good, and I know, and I'm priming myself for the actual set. For example, reminding myself to make sure I've everything locked my back in, everything's stable on the bench, and when I'm pushing, I'm really feeling my chest squeeze and controlling it on the way down. So I'm doing that throughout my warm-up. So when I do my actual set, burnt into my mind exactly what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to feel when I'm doing it. So this will help you make sure you do the set properly. It'll help you implement good technique when you do the actual set, and it helps prevent injuries. The next thing I just wanted to touch on is mind-muscle connection. So it's definitely a great thing to develop, but it's not, you don't necessarily have to die hard by it. If you didn't feel a muscle too well in a set, it's not a train smash. It's fine. It happens. It's fine. I know it's like, many people emphasize how important it is and you have to feel it the whole time. And it does help, but you don't need to fixate on it the whole time. Especially, let's say when you're doing a heavy set of bench. If you just heavy set of bench, there's so many things to think about, right? You're making sure everything's stable. Your elbows are tucked in. Your back is solid. You're using leg drive to help you push the weight up. Those heavy sets, and you want to, you may not be so locked in on that muscle, and you may not have felt the greatest mind-muscle connection. That doesn't mean it wasn't a stimulating set. It would have still been a really good set. So don't beat yourself up about it. But in general, you do want to try and build that connection and make sure you're training the muscle you actually wanted to. So if you're doing bicep curls, the importance of it comes in, for example, when you're doing bicep curls and you can feel that your biceps are doing the work and your forearms aren't taking over. And this comes with time. The more you train, the more you try and focus on this connection with your muscle as you're training, the better you will get at it. And you'll be able to really focus on the muscle you want to train. Then there's how hard should you train? General rule of thumb is your last set. A good general rule of thumb is to take your last set to failure, but not for everything. If you're doing squats, you don't need to take your last set to failure. That could destroy you. You can take it just shy of failure. So let's say you get it all the way up to 8 reps and you really struggle to get that 8th rep and you're on 9, you're probably not going to complete it. Then it's okay to stop at 8 for something like squats, because it can be a bit dangerous to take it that far, especially if you don't have somebody you're training with, somebody that's spotting you. Same thing with bench. If you're going to take it that far, make sure you have somebody that's spotting you. But with things like bicep curls, leg curls, lat pull downs, all those things, that last set, taking it all the way to failure is going to be a great stimulus for growth. And just this last thing is ego lifting. I know when you're starting off at the gym, it can be so exciting to just push as much weight as you can, see what you can do there, and completely throw form out the window just to try and see how much weight you can move. It's definitely fun. I know it's going to happen. Just don't make it a regular thing. And if you want to do it, I know it can be really fun. Just don't make it a regular thing and do your exercises with good technique. If you do it with good technique, over time, you can accurately measure whether you're making progress or not. But if you're doing 8 sets of 60 kgs or plate on the bench this week or last week, and now you're doing 10 reps, but you've gone from controlling the weight down and pushing it up to like bouncing the weight on your chest, I don't think you're actually making progress. You're just making it easier for you to do more. So yeah, it can be fun, but stick to good technique over time. You'll make sure you're making good progress. This one is, I would only worry about if you've been training for a little while and you have some muscles that have been lagging, or you want to focus on something in particular. So for example, with me, my chest grows pretty quickly compared to my arms. So I do go through phases where I'll focus on arms and want to get more volume out of them. My arms also recover way faster than my chest. I can do 5 sets of chest and it will be broken for the next couple days or a week. But with arms, I can do 8, 10 sets, even go all the way up to 12, and they'll recover by the next day. And like I said, they lag compared to my chest. So for certain periods of time, I'll structure my workout in a way that I can focus on my arms and get it up to speed with my chest, with my back, just so that everything's proportional. So just an example of an arms focused routine is Monday, we got chest and back, Tuesday arms, Wednesday legs, Thursday arms again, Friday legs, Saturday arms again, and then Sunday rest. So as you can see, I'm hitting the arms 3 times a week, and indirectly they would have been trained when I did chest and back. So it's a lot of volume on my arms. But remember, when you do this type of specialization, you need to take into account how fast you actually recover. So like I said, my arms recover very quickly, so I can afford this level of frequency. And all this does is it prioritizes building up my arms, and it puts my chest and back at a volume and frequency that will cause a little bit of growth, but it won't be as stimulating as it is for my arms. So that's why I only hit it once a week. I still have legs in there twice because legs is also a difficult one for me to grow. So I always keep it at minimum twice a week for me to keep it up to speed with everything. So yeah, if you've been training for a while and you wanted to focus on arms, you can give this one a go, or something like this and this is where you can start getting quite creative with how you train and your workout split and routine. It won't be those common ones you see on Instagram or TikTok. This is going to be one you sit and create for yourself, because yourself and for your own goals based on how quickly you recover. If you wanted to do something like this and focus on arms, for example, let's take on Tuesday, if you did, and you found that on Wednesday, your biceps were still sore, but your triceps feel like nothing happened. Then on Thursday, actually, no, scratch that. So if you wanted to do this, let's say you start off with that minimum 4 sets again. So Tuesday, 4 sets of biceps and triceps, Thursday, 4 sets of each, Saturday, 4 sets of each. And then just take note of how you felt. Let's say the day after your biceps were still wrecked or were sore, but your triceps weren't. So the next week, what you can do is keep your biceps at 4 sets and increase your triceps to 5 sets. And like that, you increase. Once your biceps stop getting sore, you can increase there. And for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you do this routine to really focus on the muscle group you want to work on. So what is the best time to train? I've got 3 different options here. So during the day, actually, that's supposed to be morning, afternoon, or evening. So what is the best time to train? I've got 3 options here. We got the evening. This time you'll generally feel stronger at the end of and that's typically because you've eaten, you've fueled yourself well for the workout, so you can have a really good session. The problem with this one is you could be tired at the end of the day after work or school, and that could affect your workout. Also, I found that life gets in the way, especially with work. Things can happen and you end up working late, and not everybody has these 24/7 gyms. So when it gets to the time you actually finish your work day, the gym is closed and now you have to miss your workout. So it's got its pros where you'll be stronger, but it can be difficult to stay consistent at it. Actually, to start off with what is the best time to train, the best time to train is whatever time you can be most consistent going to the gym. First and foremost, that's the most important thing to consider when choosing a time. Then we can look into these things. So I got those 3 options. Okay. Then with the morning, you'll tend to be a bit weaker. Not significantly, but you will notice it. But the pros are you get up, get it, and it's done for the day. You don't need to worry about what happens later on in the day. Your workout is done. Also, I might be a bit biased here, but I find that it leads to a more productive day for me. It also significantly improves my mood, and I just feel like I have a much better day when I started off that way. The last option is, I know there are some people who just go whenever they can go, and this happens a lot if you have a changing routine. I know, especially when you're in a phase like university, and you got classes at different times, you got tests on certain days. It can happen where you just go the moment you are free, which is still fine, but I find this way a bit difficult to stay consistent. But remember, the most important thing is which time can you be the most consistent going. If that's whenever and you're in that phase, then you don't need to set a specific time where you go to train. But it can be beneficial to choose a specific time and just stick to that. Feels like I'm just rambling. So nutrition here, I'm going to delve into what to eat, how much protein you need, what are the best times to eat, and consider what to eat in those times, and then supplements. Starting off with how much to eat, we've got maintenance. So your maintenance calories. What you can do is just search online, look for a maintenance or a calorie calculator. You'll put in your weight, you'll put in your weight, your height, how much activity you do on a daily basis, and it'll spit out a general number of calories. This is the quickest way to get a decent guess of what your maintenance calories are. Let me explain what maintenance calories, what it means to eat at maintenance calories. So this means that you're eating enough, you're eating just enough such that your body doesn't change in weight. So you can eat that much food every single day and your body weight won't change. That's your maintenance calories. Then if you want to go into a surplus, you eat a little bit more than your maintenance calories and you'll start gaining weight. And if you go into a deficit, you eat a little bit less than your maintenance calories and you'll start to lose weight. So yeah, to find that maintenance calories, the quickest and simplest way is to just search online for a calorie calculator. You put in your weight, you put in your height and your daily activity, and it will spit out a general number of calories for you. So with this, you'll aim for this number of calories, but because it's just a general number of calories, you can't be certain that that is your maintenance calories. So for about a week or 2 weeks, eat at that number of calories and see if your weight's changing. If it doesn't change, great, you're eating at maintenance. And if it does change, if you're losing weight, add a little bit more. You can add a little bit more. So let's say you're eating 2,500 calories and you lost about half a kg, then you can add about 200 calories. You were eating at 2,500 calories and at the end of the week, you lost a little bit of weight, add 200 calories and monitor it for another week and see what happens. Do that, and same for the other side. If you gained a little bit of weight, it's not the end of the world. If you didn't want to gain weight, don't worry. Just drop how much you're eating. So go down to 2,400 or 2,300. Do that for a week, see what happens. If your weight doesn't change, once you get to the point where your weight doesn't change, you found your maintenance calories. If you keep eating at your maintenance, you'll do what's called a recomp or body recomposition, and you'll be building muscle and losing fat at the same time. If you've been training for a while, then I wouldn't count on this happening. Training for a while, then you might find your progress to be really slow if you do it this way. It will still work, but progress will be quite slow. If you're just starting though, this is a great way to start training, to start making progress. For the first couple months, just eating at maintenance, you'll learn your body, you'll learn how to train, Then you got the options of eating at a surplus, so eating a little bit more than your maintenance, and over time you'll gain weight. And ideally what you can do is what's called a lean bulk. So if your maintenance is 2,500 calories, add about 200 calories. So eat at 2,700 for a couple of weeks, and you'll gain a little bit of weight over time. But by doing it this way and not trying to gain a whole lot of weight super quickly, you'll minimize how much fat you gain as you put on muscle. Remember, muscle takes time to grow and to build. So even if you eat 1,000 calories extra this week, that doesn't mean all of that is going to building muscle. A lot of that is going to end up going to fat because your body can only build muscle at a certain rate. So yeah, there's being truthful. It has been shown that you can put on a little bit more muscle by eating in a more excessive surplus, but it also showed that you put on way more fat. So now if you do that, you're going to have to go into a very long cutting phase to lose all of that fat. And in that phase, you may lose all of that additional muscle, maybe even a little bit more to get as lean as you want to get. So it's often not worth it. Just take it slow, do a lean bulk, and you will make good progress over time, and you won't have to lose as much fat. And when you're ready to cut and get a bit leaner, you won't have to lose as much fat. So yeah, then the other option is to go into a deficit. When you're just starting off, you can still build muscle in a deficit because, like I said, when you're starting, everything's new. Your body's really sensitive to building muscle. So you can definitely build muscle in a deficit as a beginner. But if you've been training for a while, being in a deficit is more just to lose fat. And your aim is to try your best to keep as much muscle as possible in that phase whilst you're dropping down and leaning up. Similarly with the surplus, a good and slow cut is recommended to prevent losing a lot of extra muscle. Because remember, you worked really hard to put on that muscle. You don't want to go and lose all of it now. So very similarly with the lean bulk, drop about 200 calories from your maintenance. So if it was 2,500, go to 2,300. For a couple of weeks, eat at that, drop the weight slowly, see what's happening. And only once you stop losing weight, then drop it a little bit more. Similarly with the surplus and the lean bulk, only when you stop gaining weight after you've added those 200 calories, then add the 200, add another 100 or 200 if you want to continue bulking. So how much protein should you eat? A good rule of thumb is eat between 0.75 grams to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So I just have an example here. If you weigh around 80 kgs, so roughly 176 pounds, then you can aim for between 132 grams or 130 grams to 264 to 264 grams of protein. And keep in mind, more protein doesn't necessarily mean you will build more muscle. This is just the sweet spot for how much protein your body can actually use to build muscle on a daily basis based on your size. And even if you do end up eating a lot more protein, most of it is probably going to go to waste. Your body won't use it and it's just going to get rid of it. So save that, save your kidneys, eat enough to ensure you're building muscle, but that extra protein is likely just wasted. Even looking at these numbers, I don't really go past 200 grams of protein. I usually get between 180 to 200 grams of protein, and I weigh just about 80 kgs. And there are many days where I just manage to hit about 140 grams, and I still make decent progress. So you don't need to chase these super high numbers. This is just a general rule of thumb, but even 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per body weight is fantastic. You don't need to go to that upper end. Usually that upper end is used when you're cutting, because it's thought that when you're cutting, you tend to lose muscle. So it's thought that if you eat more protein, your body will burn that protein or use that protein in place of your muscle. So it's assumed that helps you prevent. So it can help you prevent losing extra muscle if you are cutting. But otherwise, that 0.75 to a gram of protein per pound is great. So now what to eat to help you build as much muscle as possible? High protein foods like lean meats, so lean beef, chicken, fish, fantastic protein sources. If you're on the vegetarian or vegan side, you got soy, tofu, and then lastly, there is protein powder. But just remember, with protein powder, use it as a supplement. Don't base your diet completely off of this. Rather get your protein from other sources like the lean meats or the tofu and soy if you're vegetarian or vegan. Then it's really important to get in healthy fats. It's great for keeping your hormone levels in check, and it does help with recovery, making sure your joints all feel good. You can get that from avocados, from nuts like almonds, olive oil and peanut butter. Just be careful with the olive oil and peanut. Just be careful with the healthy fats, especially more so with how much you eat of them, because they can be very dense in calories. So you can quickly go way over your calorie target with these. Include them in your diet. They are very important, but just be wary of how much you have of them. Complex carbohydrates, let's just say carbohydrates. Okay. Then you got carbohydrates like your rice and potatoes. These are your fuel. They are important. They really do help with recovery as well. So make sure you are getting in enough carbs, enough carbohydrates, because they are important. Then your vegetables and fruits, also important to get in. These serve more for your micronutrients. So making sure you're getting in enough vitamins and minerals. You'll get that from your leafy greens, or broccoli, the typical Jimbro meals, the Jimbro veggies. And then fruits also really well packed with many micronutrients. Get them from your berries, apples, bananas. All of these together will form a really great diet to make sure you're recovering properly, you're fueling your workout so you have enough energy to train effectively, and you're giving your body what it needs to build muscle. I just wanted to touch on unhealthy foods. In moderation, these are perfectly fine. If you really want a burger from McDonald's, that's fine. Just avoid eating that every day, because you'd rather get your calories from more nutritious foods. And you'll hear a lot about, calories in, calories out, right? It does make a difference. Yes, you can still, for example, lose weight eating fast foods and a whole lot of junk. You can, just by making sure you eat fewer calories than your maintenance. So even if you eat 2,300 calories worth of chocolate and your maintenance is 2,500 calories, you will lose weight. But the macronutrient profile is terrible. You're not getting in enough protein. It's super high in sugar, so you're going to feel terrible. It's terrible for your glucose levels. Don't do that. Eating or getting in your nutrients from whole, nutritious foods makes a huge difference based on how you feel, your energy. It'll help you work out better, well, have better workouts, and thus have a better stimulus for muscle growth. So it does make a difference. And I just got your Rice Krispie treats because I really like having that as a pre-workout snack. Just quick source of carbohydrates. It digests really quickly and serves as decent fuel for my workout. I do have a relatively decent meal a bit before that, but this is really close to my session just to make sure I have enough, just to bump up my fuel a little bit for the workout. I feel it makes a difference. I also have a better pump when I have it or something like that. Sometimes if I don't have that, I'll have a spoonful of honey. I know lots of people like to have gummy worms. So these things are normal. You can have them in moderation, but that's what's key, in moderation. Don't go have a ton of it every single day. It will ruin your progress and you'll feel terrible. So I have your best times to eat, but I know I say best times to eat, but I'm touching more on what are some really important times to consider when you're eating. Everybody has a different lifestyle. Everybody's going to eat at different times. That's fine. As long as you're meeting your calorie goals and you're getting in good protein, carbs, all of that stuff every day, you're great. But just something to note is before you train, you want to make sure, or it's a good idea to try and fuel your workout adequately. So like I said, I'll have a Rice Krispie treat just to get my carbs up because it digests quickly. I have good fuel for my session. And it's really important to do that. So before you train, getting in some good carbohydrates, quick digesting ones close to your session is really important to make sure you can train effectively. And then after your workout, again, great to have most of your carbs in that meal, as well as a good source of protein, just to help with recovery, refill all the glycogen stores you would have used up in your session. And there is this thing called the protein window, which you might have heard of. But if you haven't, essentially, it could be that soon after your workout, your body will use protein a lot more efficiently than at other times of the day. And if that is the case, then I'm making use of it. I think you should too. Why not make use of that? Getting good protein after you train. And then the carbs, as I said, to refill all of those energy stores that you would have used up. And it does also contribute to building muscle. I also wanted to attack a common myth, is that eating carbs right before bed will make you fat. That's not true. It's just if you're in a calorie surplus, you will gain weight. That's the main thing. I will say though, it is best to avoid heavy meals before you go to bed, because heavy meals can really disrupt your sleep because you're digesting, your body's doing a whole lot of stuff, and it can affect your sleep. Also, if you have a lot of protein right before bed, protein is known to have a strong thermogenic effect. What that means is when your body digests protein, it releases a lot of heat. So your body gets really hot, and that can wake you up in the middle of the night and interrupt your sleep. It was a long freaking video. So supplements, I've touched on the protein powder. It's a great way to up your protein for the day quickly. Just don't use them to replace your meals. Don't base your diet off of them. But they are definitely great to increase your total protein intake for the day. Creatine, I do take it. I feel like it makes a difference to my recovery. It has been proven to make a difference for many people. There are some people where it doesn't really make a difference. If you want to try it, just about 5 grams a day works fine. If you do take it, make sure you are drinking at least 2 liters of water per day. I would even push that to about 3 because creatine pulls a whole lot of water into your muscles and so reduces the amount of water you have for everything else your body needs. So you need to consume more to make up for that. And then you can also supplement your diet with vitamins. So for example, I do take magnesium and omega-3s on top of my normal diet. The omega-3s are really good for my joints, and people are often deficient in that. Then the magnesium, same thing, people are often deficient in it, and it really helps with recovery. It also really helped with my sleep. I know it's helped a lot of people with their sleep, so you can consider taking that. If you do want to take vitamins and creatine, make sure you speak to a nutritionist or your doctor to make sure you can take certain things. And even earlier with the amount of protein and all of that, just run that through. If you are changing your diet, just run that through with your doctor before making severe changes to your diet, because it can have influences on your health depending on your circumstances. So make sure you do that before just following what I say. This is just a guideline and what you can do to help improve, to help you build more muscle. But anything drastic, please check first before you do it. So now recovery, I'm going to touch on rest days, deloads, as well as sleep, hydration, and stress management. Rest days and deloads, do you need them? Rest days, yes. Deloads, it depends. I'll start with the rest days. It's extremely important. When you're resting is when your body's actually building the muscle, repairing from all the training you've done. You don't actually build muscle from the training. You build muscle when you're resting afterwards. So make sure you get in good rest and don't skip your rest day. So make sure you are getting in enough rest. Rest days also help a lot with reducing the amount of fatigue you get from working out intensely throughout the week. I know some people can train every single day and they don't really get fatigued. That's great for them. But for me and for most people, rest days are great and they can help ensure that you are able to train effectively every single week. So what is a deload? All it is for about a week, you reduce the amount of volume you do for that week to help reduce fatigue and promote recovery. Why would you do this? Let's say after a good number of weeks, you find that even though you are taking your rest days, you're getting more and more tired, your joints are starting to get sore, you're starting to feel little aches in your muscles that aren't going away. Your sleep's also starting to be affected, you're not sleeping as well. Those are all good indicators that you could, that you need a deload, because the normal rest day isn't reducing your fatigue and allowing you to recover enough for all the training you've been doing. Just don't fall into the trap of doing this every 2 weeks, every 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's usually not necessary unless you're doing extremely intense training or very specific training. Usually after about 6 weeks or more, you might feel that you need a deload. And I usually feel that I need one about every 2 to 3 months. And I also like to every 2 to 3 months. So after that amount of time training, if I was doing about, let's say 10 sets of each muscle group every single session for that week, I'll drop that all the way down to 4 sets, maybe even 3 sets below that minimum, because I'm not really trying to build muscle in that week. I'm just trying to recover. And then in the following week, go back up to 4 and then 5, starting from the bottom again. And then as the weeks go, I'll add again. As the weeks go, I'll add up again. I don't immediately go back to 10. This time can also be really good to resensitize your body to volume, because your body could have got used to doing 10 sets every single day, recovering, and now or even 12 sets every single day and recovering. Now, you don't really want to go to 13 sets because then you start doing junk volume and it doesn't make a difference anyway. So you can reduce your volume, recover, start again at 4. Because you've done that recovery phase of doing so few sets, your body will resensitize, and those lower number of sets will be just as good as a stimulus as it was the first time. So in this deload phase, I also tend to do what's called a caffeine detox, because I take pre-workout, and over time, the pre-workout stops hitting, and I'd become I'd lose a lot of my sensitivity to caffeine, and it's not a good thing to take more and more caffeine. So in this time for about a week, I'll go completely off of it, and that usually resets nicely. So I'll become a lot more sensitive to volume and the caffeine again, and I can start taking pre-workout again and feeling the effects of it properly. Anyway, that was just a side note. Sleep, hydration, and stress management. Remember I said when you're resting and recovering, that's when your body's actually repairing and building its muscle. That mainly happens when you're asleep. I would suggest a minimum of 7 hours of sleep per night. That can go up to 9 hours. More than 9 hours and less than about 6 hours isn't recommended. It's not usually good for your health, let alone building muscle. There are outliers for people who can sleep a little bit less and a little bit more, but good rule of thumb, between 7 and 9 hours is the sweet spot for health and for building muscle. Then with the water, minimum 2 to 3 liters of water, especially if you're taking creatine. Then with the stress management, helps me a lot. Something that helps me a lot is making sure I have a routine where I wind down before I go to bed. Staying off of devices an hour before bed. I also like to read before I go to sleep. It really helps to tune out my thoughts. Whatever could have been bothering me or I'm thinking about even for the next day gets tuned out. I'm just focusing on the book I'm reading. So whatever it is, try and find something that can help you relax before you go to bed. And that usually will help a lot with the stress, because stress can reduce how much muscle you build because you can't relax properly. Stress has been shown to influence the amount of muscle you can actually put on. And in fact, it have very high levels of stress. It can cause you to put on fat. So stress management is really important to help you sleep better, to help you build muscle. If you're very stressed, it is an important thing to take care of. And then just some lifestyle factors is going and drinking alcohol in moderation, just like with the junk food. It's fine. It's not going to absolutely destroy your gains. As long as you're not doing it all the time, every single weekend, you're getting destroyed, you're not getting sleep, you're drinking a lot. Once in a while, that's perfectly fine. It's normal. You're human. I'm human. I also do it sometimes. You will still make progress. Just don't go overboard with it. Daily activity, if you're very active generally, you may need to eat a little bit more. If you're generally quite active and you use that online calculator to give you a suggestion of how many calories to eat, you may need to eat a little bit more than what it's suggested just because of how much activity you're getting in per day, and that does burn calories. And then, does cardio kill gains? No, it doesn't. But just like everything else, if you do too much, then yes, it can definitely affect how much muscle you put on. If you're doing intense cardio every single day, probably not the best for building muscle. A couple times a week is fine. As long as you're not doing something like a marathon every single week, you're good. Otherwise, walking, even playing some sports throughout the week won't kill your gains. Don't worry about it. You will be perfectly fine. So consistency and patience. Consistency will always beat intensity. If you train once a month extremely hard, well, even if you train 5 days a week at moderate intensity, but you train 5 days every single week, you'll make way more progress than training 1 day a week or 1 day a month extremely intensely. Consistency will trump intensity every single time. Pick the routine, like we discussed earlier, stick to it, and you will make progress. And I also wanted to note that it does take time. Your body, it takes time to build muscle. You aren't going to put on tons of muscle overnight. It takes many weeks and many months to make significant changes, but the changes will happen. As long as you stick to your routine, you eat well, it will happen. Just give it time. The last thing I wanted to touch on before, so is there a difference when training as a beginner versus an intermediate versus an advanced lifter? There is, but not really. The same principles still apply. You still want to have a routine, you still want to eat enough protein, still want to get in enough sleep and recovery. The only things that may change are the frequency that's needed to cause muscle growth, the amount of volume that's needed. A beginner may not need as much volume as an intermediate or an advanced lifter. But there are also other things that come into play. When you're intermediate or advanced, especially, you tend to be lifting much heavier weight. And when doing this, you can start experiencing something called central nervous system fatigue. And this happens because you're lifting so much weight, you put your central nervous system under so much stress and strain that it won't recover as quickly as it did before when you weren't lifting as much weight. So there are certain nuances at the different stages of training, but the same principles generally still apply. Okay, so key takeaways from everything are to make sure you have a routine, have a plan when you get into the gym so you can measure your progress. Make sure you're eating enough food, getting in enough protein so that you are recovering adequately. You're fueling your workouts to make sure you're training effectively. Prioritize rest and recovery. This is when your body actually builds the muscle you want, and you reduce your fatigue so you can train hard every single day. Remember, going out is okay, eating junk is okay, just in moderation. And the most important thing is to just stay consistent and you will see progress. All right, so let's get massive, eh?